You know that moment when someone judges you by your appearance alone? That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Emily, I'm 30 years old, and what I'm about to tell you completely changed my life and that of three guys who thought they could humiliate anyone. It all started at the University of Miami when I met Mason, a wealthy playboy who made a terrible mistake. He had no idea who he was messing with, and when he invited me to his luxury party to embarrass me publicly, he ended up digging his own grave. Everything began when I arrived at the University of Miami to study design. I've always preferred a simple style, jeans, basic t-shirts, sneakers without brand names. For me, what matters is what you carry inside, not the labels you wear. But for some people, especially for Mason, Lucas, and David, this was a reason to mock me. They were the famous Playboy trio of the university, always walking together, laughing loudly, flaunting designer clothes and imported cars. Everyone knew them, and everyone feared them. It wasn't for nothing. They had the disturbing habit of mocking anyone they considered inferior. The day we first crossed paths in the college hallways, I never imagined what was coming. Mason looked me up and down and made a comment that everyone heard. His friends laughed. Other students lowered their heads in embarrassment. But with me it was different. I didn't lower my head. I looked directly into his eyes and said something no one expected. The entire hallway exploded in applause, and at that moment, everything changed. What they didn't know is that they were playing with fire. Mason was the leader, tall, dark hair perfectly styled, always with a sarcastic smile on his face. Lucas was the most talkative, the one who made the cruelest jokes. And David, the most calculating, observed everything in silence before attacking. The three came from powerful families in Miami. Mason's parents owned one of the largest import companies in Florida. Lucas was the son of an influential judge, and David's father controlled a network of luxury car dealerships. On campus, they acted like they owned the place. They skipped classes whenever they wanted, ignored assignment deadlines, and still got the best grades. Everyone suspected favoritism, but no one had the courage to confront them. But the worst thing wasn't the absences. The worst was their cruelty. They took sick pleasure in mocking other students. If someone wore simpler clothes, they laughed loudly and made malicious comments. If a professor had a different accent, it became a reason for jokes. I watched all of this with growing indignation. Someone needed to do something. I just didn't know that person would be me. It was on a Tuesday morning that everything changed between me and the trio. I was walking through the university corridors heading to my first advanced projects class when I heard their laughter behind me. "Look at that, the newcomer arrived," Mason said loudly, clearly wanting me to hear. "Looks like she borrowed her great-grandmother's clothes." Lucas completed. "I bet she's from some small town. Her parents probably spent all their savings to send her to study here. She must be on scholarship." David, always more acidic, added. "Her town must be so remote it doesn't even have internet. She probably thinks Wi-Fi is some kind of food." The three burst into laughter. Other students in the hallway lowered their heads in embarrassment. But no one said anything. It was always like this with them. Everyone was afraid of becoming the next target. But not me. I stopped in the middle of the hallway, took a deep breath, and turned around slowly. My heart was beating hard, but my voice came out firm and clear. "You know, it's better to be seen as a simple girl, authentic and genuine, than to be an empty container covered in labels. You hide behind your parents' money, but what do you really have inside? What's left when you remove all this superficial shine?" I took a step forward, looking directly at Mason. "The world has a funny way of surprising us. Today you're on top, but do you really believe this arrogant attitude will last forever?" The silence that followed was absolute. And then something unexpected happened. The hallway exploded in applause. The applause from my classmates still echoed through the corridors when I noticed the mortified looks of Mason, Lucas, and David. For the first time since they arrived at that university, they had been publicly humiliated. And I knew this wouldn't end here. In the following days, I completely immersed myself in my studies. The library became my second home. I stayed late making notes, researching, dedicating myself to each project as if it were the most important of my life. And the results appeared quickly. Emily got the highest grade on the structural design exam, commented an admiring classmate. She surpassed everyone. And that's not all, added another. She was chosen to represent our university in an international competition. It's incredible. The professors also started to notice me. Emily has a brilliant mind, said Professor Martinez during a meeting. She not only understands concepts quickly, but also manages to apply them in innovative ways. But while I was reaping the fruits of my effort, something sinister was being plotted in the shadows. Mason, Lucas, and David met at a sophisticated cafe in Miami's upscale Brickell neighborhood. The panoramic view of the city was impressive, but they were focused on just one thing: revenge. Listen, Mason began with his eyes shining with malice. We're going to make peace with her. Pretend everything is fine. And then I'll invite her to my birthday party at the most luxurious restaurant in the city. Lucas smiled maliciously. And she'll show up in those simple clothes of hers, completely out of place, while everyone will be impeccably dressed. Exactly, Mason exclaimed. We'll film everything and post it on social media. She'll never raise her head in this university again. David, always cautious, asked. And if she suspects? Mason responded confidently. She won't. We'll be convincing, and when she least expects it, she'll fall into our trap. Mason was determined to make his plan work perfectly. He reserved the Ocean Terrace, the most exclusive restaurant in Miami, with a privileged view of the ocean. It was the ideal setting for what he considered the perfect revenge, but he didn't stop there. The trio hired a professional team to install high-definition cameras at strategic points in the restaurant. Everything would be broadcast live on major social media platforms. Imagine her face when she realizes the whole world is watching her humiliation, said Lucas, rubbing his hands in anticipation. The next morning, Mason looked for me in the university gardens. He was dressed in an impeccable suit and held a golden envelope in his hands. His smile seemed genuine, but there was something in his eyes that left me alert. Emily, he began with a soft voice. I wanted to personally deliver this invitation to my 25th birthday party. It would be an honor to have you there. I know we've had our disagreements, but maybe this is a chance for us to start over. I looked deeply into his eyes, searching for any sign of falsehood. For a moment I hesitated, but then I thought, why not? Maybe people really can change. Thank you, Mason. I'll be there, I replied, accepting the invitation with a cautious smile. When I turned to leave, I didn't see the triumphant smile that formed on his face. I also didn't hear the quick message he sent to Lucas and David. She accepted. Phase 1 complete. Mason watched me walk away, already imagining how glorious it would be to see me out of place and embarrassed at his party. He thought he had won. Poor Mason. He had no idea what was coming. He knew absolutely nothing about who I really was, and that ignorance would be his downfall. Saturday arrived. Mason, Lucas, and David were at the Ocean Terrace, dressed impeccably, receiving guests with fake smiles. The cameras were positioned, the live stream ready to begin. They anxiously waited for me. She's probably nervous getting ready in those simple clothes of hers, Lucas mocked. Or maybe she gave up on coming, realizing how out of place she'd be, David added with disdain. Mason constantly looked at the entrance, a mixture of expectation and anxiety on his face. The party was in full swing when suddenly the sound of a powerful engine caught everyone's attention. A black limousine, long and imposing, glided smoothly to the restaurant entrance. The city lights reflected on its polished surface, creating an almost magical effect. Who the hell arrives in a limousine at my party? Mason murmured, frowning. Silence took over the environment. All the guests stopped their conversations and turned their eyes to the limousine. The door opened slowly. First appeared my shoes, a pair of silver Louboutin heels. Then my dress, a navy blue Valentino that perfectly hugged my curves, with crystal details that sparkled under the lights. My hair was in soft waves, impeccable makeup, and a discreet diamond necklace completed the look. Gabriel stepped out right behind me, absolutely stunning in his black Armani suit, and offered his arm. Together we walked toward the entrance, as if we were on a red carpet. Mason stood there with his mouth open. Lucas and David looked like statues, completely paralyzed. I approached Mason with a radiant smile and extended an elegantly wrapped package. "Happy birthday, Mason," I said with a soft but firm voice. He took the gift with trembling hands, and upon partially opening the package, he saw the shine of a Rolex Daytona, one of the most expensive and coveted watches in the world. His eyes widened. How did you get this?" "I thought you were, well, you know." I let out a genuine laugh, making several guests turn curious to see what was happening. I looked directly into Mason's eyes and said, with a touch of amusement in my voice, "Oh, Mason, who told you I come from a humble family? Was it because of my simple wardrobe? I choose to dress this way because for me flaunting wealth is in extremely bad taste. Just so you know, my father is CEO of Thompson Import and Export, one of the largest import companies in the country. And my mother, she's the dean of this university." The silence that followed was deafening. Mason, Lucas, and David looked like they had been struck by lightning. Gabriel, always elegant, approached and placed his hand on my waist. "Mason, Lucas, David, I believe our contracts are going well, aren't they? It would be a shame if our family's investments needed to be reevaluated." It was then that they realized. The cameras they had installed to humiliate me were broadcasting live their own embarrassment to the entire university. Comments on social media exploded with laughter and memes about the trio. But I wasn't there for revenge. I was there to show that true wealth isn't in what you wear or drive, but in who you are. Gabriel gently pulled me to the dance floor. "You're radiant tonight," he whispered in my ear. "Thank you for being here with me," I replied, resting my head on his shoulder. "I'll always be by your side, Emily. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. I love you exactly as you are, simple, authentic, and with a giant heart." Tears of happiness welled up in my eyes. There, dancing under the soft lights of the restaurant, in the arms of the man I loved, I realized I had won. Not because I humiliated my enemies, but because I remained true to myself. The next day, Mason, Lucas, and David requested to meet me at the university courtyard. I arrived and found them standing together, looking completely different from the arrogant trio I had known. Their faces showed genuine remorse. "Emily," Mason began, his voice shaking slightly, "we want to apologize publicly for everything we did to you and to so many others. We were cruel, shallow, and we used our privilege as a weapon to hurt people. That was unforgivable." Lucas stepped forward, his eyes red as if he had been crying. "Last night was a wake-up call for us. Seeing ourselves through the cameras, watching how the world saw us, it was devastating. We were monsters, and we didn't even realize it." David, always the quietest, spoke with sincere emotion. "You could have destroyed us completely, Emily. You had every reason to. But instead, you showed us grace and dignity. You taught us that true wealth has nothing to do with money." I looked at the three of them, seeing not the bullies who had tormented me, but three young men who were genuinely trying to change. "Everyone makes mistakes," I said gently, extending my hand. "The important thing is to learn and grow. Make amends with everyone you hurt. Use your privilege to lift others up, not tear them down." Mason shook my hand firmly, tears streaming down his face. "We will, Emily. I promise you we will." Around us, students had gathered, watching the scene. Some were filming, others were simply observing in silence. Then something beautiful happened. One by one, students began to applaud. Not mocking applause, but genuine appreciation for the courage it took for Mason, Lucas, and David to apologize publicly. That day, I learned that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you can do. And as I walked away from that courtyard, Gabriel waiting for me by his car, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The chapter was closed, and a new one was beginning. 6 months later, Gabriel and I stood on South Beach watching the sunset paint the Miami sky in shades of orange and pink. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I leaned into his warmth. "You know what I love most about you?" he whispered. "You never let the world change who you are. You remained authentic even when it would have been easier to conform." I turned in his arms to face him. "And you loved me for who I truly was, not for my family's name or wealth. That's rare, Gabriel. That's real. He kissed my forehead softly. True elegance is in simplicity. I love you, Emily. I love you too, Gabriel. Forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I reflected on everything that had happened. Mason, Lucas, and David had truly changed. They now volunteered at community centers and used their influence for good. My story taught me that authenticity always wins, that kindness is strength, and that the best revenge is living well and staying true to yourself. This is my story of triumph. Sometimes the universe has a beautiful way of revealing the truth. And when it does, all you need to do is stand tall and shine. This is my story of triumph. Do you think I handled it correctly? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your perspective. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to Memorable Stories and Overcoming, where we share inspiring stories of triumph and justice every single day.